Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is your favorite daily real estate coaching and training podcast. And we have got a podcast for you today that is upon what I'll say extremely popular request. Now, a lot of you are building listing inventory for the first time, and the listings aren't selling. Though I did just hear something interesting, Julie. You probably know this, but the average days on the market for listings nationwide, adjust accordingly for your market, is still like 24 days. Ooh.
It's not suicidal, folks. It's okay. I know it's not 24 seconds with 24 offers. 24 days historically is not so bad.
Yeah. Now you might be in a marketplace where it's a lot longer than that. And Julie and I have been coaching and training agents for 2 decades. And I'll tell you that this is one of the shortest periods of, days in the market that we've ever experienced, certainly on a nationwide level. When Julie and I were selling real estate, it was something to brag about if you got your home sold in like 4 months. I'm not making that up.
With one offer.
With one offer, right? And when we started coaching agents full time, it was normal for homes to be on the market for, again, probably 60 to 90 days on a nationwide basis. So trust me when I tell you, we are still in a very much a hot seller's market, despite what the doom and gloom headlines might be leading you or trying to lead you to believe. So what we're going to be talking about today is the listing graveyard. Julie, you're in your titles.
Sorry.
6 silent killers that bury your sales. And we are going to, I think, probably, let me see how many points she's got. We will do our best to get through all these notes. And as always, if you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, harrisrealestatedaily.com, make sure you are subscribing to the newsletter, because that is where you're going to be able to get all of our podcast notes. And it's the only place where we're going to be able to put them. We used to be able to put them on iTunes and YouTube descriptions, but we can't anymore. So just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com, and then you have to subscribe, put your email address in, and then you have to go over to your email and double opt in, confirming you want the newsletter, and you're off to the races. All right, Julie, let's get started.
All right, so we're going to talk about 6 key factors about making a house sit or will it sell. It's critical that you pay attention to all of these, not just after you have the listing, but also going into a fresh listing, you can use these things. We call this the listing evaluation tool. We're going to go over 6 factors. Your job is to rate each of these 6 factors. So listeners, if you have listings right now, choose your favorite one, or maybe your least favorite one that's sitting on the market that should have sold 2 weeks ago, and apply these 6 factors. You're going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, right? So let's jump into this. You ready, Tim?
Yep, let's go.
Okay, and if I'm looking over here, it's because I'm reading these. Okay, so number 1, condition. Now, with more listings and even more new construction showing up, your presentation matters more than ever. It used to be that all you had to do is be on the market. During the COVID years, you just had to be available and it would sell. But now the condition actually matters. So condition can be everything, really, not just the curb appeal, that's important, but also, does it smell funny? Okay, that's condition. Odors, pet, smoke, mildew.
Julie?
Yes.
Let me drop something in here, because
Sure.
I should have read these notes ahead of time and just given you a little bit more of the introduction. And so I'm in an elite coaching call last week. I've, got quite a few new elite coaching clients. And if you're interested in talking to me about being one of my elite coaching clients, just text me directly at 512-758-0206 and send me some information about yourself. Elite coaching is for the, top tier agents that are looking to go to the next level. Maybe you didn't know the next level existed, but it does. So let's talk. Just text me at 512-758-0206. And I have to say, one of the litmus tests as to whether or not you're an elite coaching client, potential elite coaching client, is how you answer this question. So Julie, you're going to role play with me, okay?
Okay, I'm not sure where you're going, but I'll see if I can play along.
You better get this right, or I'm totally going to make fun of you for getting this wrong.
Great.
All right. Does more marketing and advertising, the listing advertising, more websites, more home brochures, more homes magazines, more postcards?
No, and no.
Okay. Does it decrease the days on the market, more marketing and advertising?
Nope.
Does it increase the net to the seller?
Nope.
Okay. Does it decrease the hassle to the seller?
No.
No. Okay. So here's the big
I would even say sometimes it can prolong all of that pain because you're advertising something that's overpriced sometimes.
Well, so focusing here, price, condition, location, is what gets properties sold.
Yes.
Price, condition, location. More marketing and advertising does not decrease the days in the market, increase the net to the seller, or decrease the hassle to the seller, right? So we need to be all collectively honest that the reason that you do market and advertise is not to get the listing sold. It's to generate more listing leads for yourself. And the reason that you advertise and market your properties is to win the listing. And every one of my elite coaching clients, maybe with the exception of one, already knew that. And they knew that marketing and advertising doesn't do anything to get listings sold. But the amateurish agents, again, this was one of my questions I was asking to find out whether someone was ready for elite coaching. The ones that thought that marketing and advertising had a positive net gain or not net effect on the days in the market, in other words, fewer days in the market, higher sale price, those were the ones that have a lot, their learning curve wasn't to the point where elite coaching made a really good sense for them. And so for those guys, we send them to our other coaches, which are, fantastic. Because at the end of the day, guys, listen to what I'm saying. It'll save you a lot of stress and frankly, a lot of money. Marketing and advertising does not benefit the seller in the sense that it's not going to reduce their days in the market. Julie, can you shut your messages off? It's not going to reduce your days in the market. It's not going to increase the net to the seller. And it's certainly not going to decrease the hassle to the seller when they put the property for sale. That's what I'm hoping all of you guys clearly understand. Price and condition, location, and then putting it in the MLS will cause the property to sell. So an agent that spends $10 billion marketing and advertising a property is not going to have lower days in the market, is not going to sell properties for more money, even though that's what the market, or frankly, that's what a lot of listing agents tell potential sellers, even though maybe that's what marketing and advertising companies that are trying to get you guys to buy their services are leading you to believe is true, but statistically it's not. And I know what I'm saying flies in the face of what most of you think, but you should be translating if you're confronted or triggered by what I'm saying, what you should be understanding is that marketing and advertising, when you're a very proficient skills-based listing agent, is not necessary, which means the amount of money you're spending on each listing for marketing and advertising your listing becomes voluntary. And if you have sales skills, you no longer have to promise a bunch of marketing and advertising to the sellers just to win the listing. If you're having to promise the earth, the moon, and the stars and everything else to win a listing, if it's an arms race for who's going to spend the most money to market and advertising a seller's listing, and I realize, I totally understand, in upper end markets, the sellers want to see, their egos want to see their houses advertised everywhere. Mm-hmm. And you have to play that game. I totally and completely understand. But for 90% of you, you don't. And the only reason you fall prey to that is because you're out of other reasons why the seller would want to list with you. So you end up spending all of what would have been your profit marketing and advertising a house, whereas essentially it has no net positive gain to the seller. And if you had the skill set to understand, to explain all that to the seller using facts and statistics, they wouldn't then feel obligated to try to coerce you into marketing and to, essentially wasting a bunch of money to run ads or do postcards to get their house sold. Do you guys understand? So marketing and advertising at the end of the day is going to definitely raise your presence amongst other prospective sellers, but it doesn't actually do anything to get the home sold. Here, I'll prove it to you guys. If you guys have a house and it's a terrible location, in terrible condition, but it's priced well, will the property sell? It will, won't it?
Yep.
Isn't that interesting? So ultimately, price is the most important thing. So as you're receiving the rest of these notes and listening to what we're having to say, if you feel confronted by what I'm saying, I'm asking you to put the hesitance to listen to what I'm saying aside for a second, and then actually open your mind to the fact that maybe you don't need to be spending so much time and money on some of the things you've been spending time and money on if you were to instead take a skills-based approach to what you want to do in your real estate business. Julie, let's move forward.
Yes, and that's why it is not one of our 6 factors, right? So we're talking about what you were mentioning, what actually goes into selling the house, not just advertising the house, but getting the house sold. So your mission here is to rate each of these 6 factors on a scale of 1 to 10. So your perfect score would be 60. And that would mean, listeners, if your perfect score is 60, that's probably your listings that are in contract, just to keep it real. If you're scoring lower, that tells you exactly where the work needs to be. So let's go back to point number 1 is condition. Every listing or coming soon has a condition. That's curb appeal. That's what it looks like when you walk in the foyer. That's even how it looks in the MLS, because you're being judged on condition consciously and subconsciously, not just by buyers scanning through things online, but also buyers agents looking through what now has been growing inventory. We now have more than 1 million active listings available in the country. That's back to 2019 levels. And with 1 million listings, that means your listings probably do have a lot of competition. Some of you in Texas and Florida and places like that have a lot of competition. So if I'm a buyer's agent and I only have time to show a buyer 3 properties today, but there's 10 to choose from, I'm going to say, what's that condition look like? Is my buyer going to be totally out? I don't even want to see that. And I've just wasted my time setting it up and wasted their time meeting me at the house. So a condition can be what it looks like in the MLS. We've all seen pictures. There's an entire website dedicated to terrible realtor advertising, pictures that they found online, where you're taking you're showing off the bathroom and it's a picture with the toilet lid up. That's bad presentation, isn't it? Okay, so that's condition. How would you rate your listing on a scale of 1 to 10? The second one is location. Now, you can't change the location, but you can give it a rating. So a 10 would be in a beautiful tree-lined street that's quiet. There's no stop sign in the front yard. That's your great location. A terrible location is there's jets landing practically in the backyard. It's next to a freeway, busy intersections, stuff like that. Back to you, Tim.
So, Mr. Seller, I have a question for you. So in real estate, we have 3 things that 3 factors that go into whether or not a house is going to sell. It's price. Julie told me to move my camera because she said I look like the heat miser from
Cold miser.
The cold miser, because the light was making my hair glow. So I just moved. All right. Is that better, Julie?
Yes.
Not cold miser. Okay.
So.
All right. So, Mr. Seller, in real estate, the sellability of a property comes down to 3 things: price, condition, and location. So I've got 3 quick questions for you. So Mr. Seller, condition-wise, were you planning on doing anything like maybe adding a bedroom or filling in a pool or doing anything like that? Were you planning on, adding any sort of landscaping or doing anything that would have, majorly change the condition of the property? Maybe add wallpaper, remove wallpaper, change the flooring, update the kitchen. You weren't, were you? No. Okay. So condition is what condition is. Mr. Seller, so let me ask you another question. As far as the property goes, location is what the location is. So we do have some people that are saying that they can hear the freeway. I know it's, a mile over, but when the wind's going in the right direction. But for the most part, we don't really have a location issue. It's got a nice private backyard. You're not, you're on a cul-de-sac, so all good. So we'll say the condition is what the condition is. The location is what the location is. So Mr. Seller, the only thing that we can have a positive effect on is really how the property is positioned in the market. In other words, how the other agents and how their buyers actually perceive the house in comparison to the competition of what's for sale. So that means that the price, or how we position the house on the market, is the most important thing, because we can't really change the location. I mean, we can't move the house, right? We can't really majorly change the condition in a meaningful way to have a real big impact on the sellability of the property. So the only thing we can really positively affect is how it's perceived as essentially on the market versus the competition. And if we have the house positioned correctly in the eyes of the buyers, if we're meeting or exceeding the buyer's expectation as far as price, condition, location, we've got a very sellable property. So hopefully that makes sense. And notice what I'm trying to avoid saying is lower the price and having pricing conversation. That's really what I'm trying to avoid.
Yes, that's right. And in fact, listeners, we have used that script many, many times because, we actually sold real estate. And it is very effective to get them. I mean, ideally, you're priced right in the first place and you don't have to have any of these conversations. But in reality, now and then, you are going to have to reposition the home to more accurately represent the expectations of the buyers actually looking for a house like yours. So that we're going to talk a little bit more about price in point number 4. But number 3 is the showings and the momentum. Well, how can you rate that? 1 showing a week is kind of okay. It's better than none, but you're still probably overpriced in reality. If you're getting a lot of showings but no offers, you're probably very close to being priced right, but you still have no offers. So if you're getting multiple showings and second tours, you might need to prospect that buyer's agent and encourage them and help them to close that buyer. So over 50% of homes right now are sitting for more than 60 days. Now that's nationwide, so that's blending the markets that have well more than 60 days on the market. But 1 in 5 are having price reductions before they actually sell. So you've got to rate your showings and momentum. If it's crickets and it doesn't even seem like it's in the MLS, you're getting no showings, you probably are significantly off the mark regarding price. You also may have breached number 1. Maybe when I look at it online, I don't want to show it because the condition looks terrible. Why would you have pictures of the bad parts, right? So there you go.
Well,
I
so
can.
Mr. Seller, here's the thing. After 2 weeks or 10 showings, if we don't have a written verified offer on the property, chances are we need to reposition the house on the market so that it correctly reflects the buyer's expectations. And then that's a script. And notice I'm not saying lower the price. Never say lower the price to a seller, especially coming off what they perceive to be a hot seller's market, because in a seller's mind, there's no such thing as being overpriced, right? They're just always going to, in their minds, blame you for not. Like here's another script, guys. Write this one down. So you're calling a seller, and the intention of the seller of the call is to get them to reposition the house in the market. In other words, lower the price. The conversation, if the seller is feeling neglected, if you haven't been following our weekly communication plan that you should be following with every new listing, it's called the 420-day communication
12-week
plan.
seller communication plan.
12, there you go. 12-week seller communication plan, where we tell you what to say every single week. Because the worst thing you can do, especially in a market where the seller is perceiving it's taking longer than it should, is not have extremely high level, impactful communication with them. As soon as you do, not only they're not going to reposition the house, lower the price, but they're going to fire you. So you need to be staying ahead of them with what you're going to say. And in Premier Coaching, we're giving you the exact scripts and what to say prior. So you're going to say something that we know the seller is going to be thinking 2 weeks from now, and you're going to be heading that objection or that negative emotion that they might have about you off the pass. For example, this is the bad result if you're not actually communicating with the seller. Bob, I appreciate they won't even say that. So Bob, I got a question for you. Every time I hear from you, or the only time I hear from you, this is a, negative Nancy seller, is when you want me to lower the price. And I got a question for you. What are you doing to get my property sold? All you do is call me and tell me to lower my price and move furniture around and all these other things. But why haven't you shown the property? I mean, Bob, isn't that your job to find buyers for my property? So isn't that like the worst case scenario that you hear from a seller because you don't know what to say?
That's what have you done for me lately call.
Exactly. And if you're hearing that from your seller, you screwed up, not that time, but a month before. Because what you need to be doing is telling the seller, Mr. Seller, listen, I just want to let you know that I'm not always the agent that's going to be showing the property, but I am the reason that it's getting shown. And so let me tell you how I spend my day. So I'll spend 90% of my time is going to be actually spent talking with prospective buyers who are probably working with, or might be working with other agents, talking with other agents, letting everyone know about your property for sale. So I'm focused on not just, tooling all over town, showing houses to buyers. When you hire me as your listing agent, I'm focused on getting your listing sold, which means I'm going to spend my best energies every single day letting the world know about your terrific property. So I might not always be the agent that's showing the property, but I am the reason that it's getting shown, right? So you guys need to know what to say, but you need to say it before you need to say it. Otherwise, it's most likely going to be too late to say it in the mind of the seller. Hopefully that makes sense.
That's called setting expectations, isn't it? So yes, if you want less of that, what have you done for me lately call, these are the types of scripts you need to be deploying. All right. So we've talked on virtually every point does get down to price many times. And point number 4 is to rate your price. How would you rate your price? Well, if there's 10 homes available and they're all 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,500 square foot homes, but you are priced at the top of the heap, well, I would rate your pricing as a 1 or a 2. It's going to maybe be the last thing I want to show because I'm trying to keep my buyer in their price range. Maybe we can accomplish all their goals for their 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,500 square foot bath, 2,500 square foot home for 50 grand less than you're priced at. Makes sense?
Script.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, so this is what we call, I'm giving you guys a lot of scripts today. And again, you learn about all this in Premier Coaching. Just go to premiercoaching.com or go to our mastermind. Julie and I are doing 3 masterminds a week. Just go to harrismastermind.com. We're sharing with you guys a lot of scripts on the mastermind, especially. But so this is a script that I made up forever ago, and it's a story. Everybody loves a story. So I'll say this to Mr. Seller, right? So Mr. Seller, so listen, Julie and I, we drive into Costco the other day. And of course, actually we went to Costco, we came back out. Julie realized after we're back out, after we loaded the car, after we went through walking, 20 miles to walk through Costco, right?
Waiting 2 hours in line. Yeah.
Waiting 2 hours in line, right? All of that. Telling Zoe and no 1,000 times
no.
that, we're everything's loaded into the car. And then Julie remembers, I forgot to buy something, milk. Okay. So I forgot to buy milk. And of course, you guys have all probably been to a Costco, and the cooler is in a Costco, it's way the hell in the back. So you have to walk in the front door, play dodge them with all the people that are just obviously spending their nights and weekends at Costco, pushing
Apparently
the
there's a
carts around
hurricane coming that we didn't know about.
or whatever.
Or whatever.
So the cooler's clear in the back. And of course, the cooler is like essentially going to a foreign planet. It's so freaking cold. I don't even know what the temperature is in those. So I'm telling them a story, right? So I get to the cooler and I am wiped out from having walked around Costco for 3 hours, wiped out and a little bit mad from having to go back in and buy Julie her milk, knowing I'm gonna have to then stand in line after I find the milk. And then Julie's very specific with her milk, of course. She wants this, 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 this. All right. So I'm standing in front of the cooler of milk. This is just a story. And I'm standing in front of the cooler of milk, Mr. Seller. And you know what? Of course, it's Costco. So there's 6 different brands of milk. I'm thinking to myself, this is insane. I mean, this all comes from a cow, doesn't it? I mean,
Also, who needs that much milk? But anyway.
Right, exactly. So I'm basically standing in front of the display of milk. It's like a milk museum, and I'm trying to decide which gallon of milk. Some of the milk is in a plastic container with a red lid. Oh, of course, Julie said no milk in plastic containers. Plastic and blah 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 is bad for you. Okay, so that's out. And then there's the milk that's in the glass containers, and the milk that's in the glass containers that's shaped like cows, and just all these different things. And so here I am. I'm trying to decide which gallon of milk I'm going to buy. They're all a gallon, Mr. Seller. They all serve the same purpose. And yes, they're a little bit different. This one's in a plastic container. This one's whole milk, half milk. This one's in a glass container. You guys get the point. They're all the same thing from my perspective. Essentially, they all have a gallon of milk. And then what I'm going to look at? I'm going to look at expiration dates. I'm going to figure out how to game this based on which has the furthest expiration date, which can sit in our refrigerator at home for the longest without spoiling. And guess what? They all have the same expiration date. Oh my gosh, how am I going to win this battle? So some of them I ruled out just because, maybe I already know Julie doesn't like plastic or, so now I'm down to the glass containers. So the glass container gallons of milk, and there's now 6 of them opposed to 12 that there were before, right? I'm finally getting this down and narrowing it down. How am I going to decide, dear listener, dear viewer, Mr. Seller, which of the gallons of milk I'm going to walk out with? What am I going to look at? I'm looking at the price. So here I'm down to 6 things that are essentially interchangeable. They're not the same. I mean, frankly, this gallon of milk has a really cool container design and the label is awesome. I mean, it's this cow that looks like he's, I don't know, so happy to be giving us his milk, and he's got flowers all around him. And this one looks like, you guys get the point. So these products are all beautiful. They're all serving the same thing, all the same usability. But this one over on the far left, Mr. Seller, is priced less by not a lot. It's priced like 75 cents less, or maybe $1 less, make it up. And then as I look to the right, they're all progressively more expensive. Again, they're interchangeable in my mind. I'm going to pull out the one that's the least expensive. And wouldn't you? And that's the one I'm going to walk out of the store with. And Mr. Seller, that's exactly how buyers and buyer agents go about choosing which listing is going to sell in a competitive listing environment, because there was originally 12 gallons of milk. 3 of them were plastic containers, which Julie didn't want. That leaves me to 6. And then I narrow it down based on essentially price, condition, location, right? I'm narrowing it down based on price because the location and the condition is interchangeable. The plastic ones were all the ones that didn't have great, they had issues with, if they're real estate, it had issues with the location, issues with the condition, issues like that. Whereas the other ones were all basically interchangeable. I'm going to choose the ones that are essentially the one that's priced most competitive. And then I'm going to grab that glass gallon of milk and I'm going to get out of the store. You guys get it? And so what you then do is you show the seller a list of all the properties that sold, not in contract, but sold, that are comps to their house, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, whatever it is, in the same price range. And then you show them. And what you're going to show them, because this is how it works, is the ones that are the least expensive, that offer the most, are the ones that are always going to sell the first. And that's a way that you can, through a story and then hitting them with analytical information of showing them actual market stats, cuts through their emotion, because there's never been a seller in the history of sellers that did not think their house was worth more than it was. It's their egos that make their property, because it's theirs, worth more than all the others. They're not objective. My story cuts through their ego, and then I show them the analytical facts when I get them laughing and relaxing a little bit. And that's how you're getting to make a decision that's going to result in them repositioning the house in the market so that it doesn't indeed correctly reflect the buyer's expectations.
Well, that's right. So let me just point out, I think
I
you
did say
touched.
about the expiration date. You don't need to repeat it. I
No,
did.
no, no, I wasn't talking about that.
Okay.
Is now you got me off my train of thought. But all things being equal, you're going to go for price, right? That's exactly how buyers. What I was going to say is that also will get a seller off of the thought that, well, I want to be priced up here. They can just negotiate. If they don't like the
They
price,
don't.
they can just come in. Well, you didn't go up to the cashier at Costco and negotiate because this one
Uh,
was organic, and it was $12 a gallon instead of
well,
6. You didn't know. You just grabbed it. It was good. It met most of your needs, so you checked out.
Well, that's a good point. So Julie's saying what, like, for example, a seller, to Julie's point, the seller will say, well, I understand what you're saying. Great story. I get the whole thing. I've had a similar experience. But why don't we just go ahead and, overprice it or price it so that it's not in alignment with the market. And then if someone wants to buy it, they'll make an offer on it.
They can
And
just negotiate.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then you say, well, let's think about that. Well, you're back at Costco. You're trying to decide which one you're going to buy. You're competing with 6 other gallons of milk that are all basically interchangeable with the other, but you want to buy the most expensive one. Are you going to take the most expensive one and walk up to the register and try to haggle with the gal at the register? No, you're going to naturally grab the least expensive one. That's how people think. People
Because
don't
it's
like.
less stressful. Buyers don't like to negotiate. Buyers agents don't like to negotiate. They like
Exactly.
to get the deal done on the product that they want.
That's the bottom line. And if you're if you're in a market where there's nothing for sale,
That's
you can
different.
put a house for sale that's got kind of crappy condition. I'll tell you what, guys, here's a little advanced coaching tip for you. If your market does go to a fierce seller's market again, which by the way, Julie and I think in the next 6 or 7 months it's going to be, we think interest rates are going to fall. We do think it's going to be a fierce seller's market again. And you have a house that is overpriced in bad condition and bad location, it'll still sell.
But not when you have competition is the point of today's listing
Yeah.
evaluation talk, because many of you are experiencing this more competition, at least for now, and you've never had to deal with any of this. You've just been able to kind of be semi-accurate on price and then, choose the best offer. That wasn't really negotiating. I know it kind of seemed like it was when you have to, do your spreadsheet of offers. But now that it's not like that for many of you, you do have to put it through the evaluation grinder. So how would you rate your price? To use Tim's milk example, a 10 on price would be, remember, we have our milk lined up, all things being equal. This one is $1 less per gallon, and it has everything else that the other ones have, but it's also got price. Aren't I going to grab that one first? Back to you, Tim.
Well, I mean, that's the bottom line. So guys, listen, when you're trying to get someone to do a price reduction, the worst thing you can do is hit them with an overly analytical facts and figures, because most sellers don't think like that. Even analytical people don't think like that. They think emotionally. So if you tell them a story, you actually move them past. Like, there's something magical about when you're hearing a story that allows frankly, your guard to be dropped. So when I'm telling that story to the seller about the gallons of milk thing and I'm trying to entertain them a little bit, they will be more receptive to what I'm trying to say versus if I tried to arm wrestle them on facts and figures. Well, Mr. Seller, 123 Elm Street was, 3,400 square feet and it sold for this amount per foot and had these features, these benefits. And then Mr. Seller is going to go, well, yes, well, that one was only 0.2% of
No, they're going to say my house is still better.
Exactly.
Because their ego has not been disengaged as a result of your story. Your
So
story was about milk, not about their house.
exactly. And so you can make it about milk or anything else. The story I told you guys was actually true, something I actually experienced. So it makes it even more fun. But that story is now yours. I just gave it to you, but you can change it out to be anything you want. But the whole Costco experience everyone's had before.
I relate.
It's what makes everyone laugh. But there you go. So just do keep all these things in mind. Julie, do you want to do a couple more points? And remember,
Yes.
guys, if you want our notes, just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. And if you're hearing Julie and I use these scripts and you're listening to us talk and you're realizing, you know what, I do have 5 or 6 or 10 listings. I have a new coaching client, Julie, has 16 listings.
Awesome.
And in their marketplace right now, it's normal for with that many listings to only have 3 go in contract. That's called a buyer's market. And their homework was, we're going to do a listing evaluation just like this. Go back and review the seller's motivation, which probably should have been point number 1, right? And then,
it's
we're
coming up.
Oh, is it? Oh, you're right. Uh, anyway, we've been doing this for a long time, haven't we? Yes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that's the point, though. And in a market where there's a lot of homes for sale, there's going to be more need to be very conscientious of your price, condition, and location. But you can't just hit them with analytical facts, or they won't receive what you have to say, and you will get fired because they'll feel that you're they'll feel that you're being adversarial to them. Is the
Yep.
point? Go ahead, Julie.
That's absolutely right. So you said, the top things, price, condition, location, but we also have number 5, which is the seller's level of cooperation. Now, sometimes that is related to their motivation, which is the next point. But here's the thing, seller's level of cooperation. Can the buyers actually see the house? Are the sellers allowing all showings? Are the dishes done? The lights on? Are the dogs there ready to eat them, or are they in the backyard? Okay, so this is seller's level of cooperation. Who's more motivated to get the home sold based on that behavior? You? Do you want it to sell more than they do? Because they're not taking after the house, they're not making the beds, they're not staging it, they're not cleaning it, whatever. So seller's level of cooperation, if they allow all showings and they prepare the house and it's properly staged, that's a 10. If they make it so that you can only show their house if the sun is shining and the baby's not napping and there's no lockbox, they won't allow that, they won't let you have a sign. Well, that's not great seller's communication or cooperation, right?
All right, so let's go on to the next point, seller motivation. So with seller's motivation, and it really does come down to the simple fact that when you ask a seller why they're selling their house, do they have to sell or do they want to sell the house? Just then when you're pre-qualifying a seller, remember guys, we teach you as part of Premier Coaching, it's the listing process, the 7-step listing process. Proactively lead generate, set the appointment, pre-qualify the seller. So you set the appointment before you pre-qualified the seller, and then after you pre-qualified the seller, if you determine that they're not motivated enough or not motivated at all, maybe then you don't go on the appointment. Don't pre-qualify them and then try to set the appointment. Do it the opposite. It's actually easier that way. That said, when you're pre-qualifying them, you're going to find what their motivation is. And there's a lot of questions we give you in the script. It's a script, but it's essentially a fill in the blank script, asking and trying to determine what the seller's motivation is. And once you know what their motivation is, you look for sellers that have to sell. Now, as you go up market, you're not going to run into too many sellers that have to sell. You're going to run into sellers that want to sell, or if the numbers make sense, they'll sell, because the wealthier somebody is, the least they're going to be financially motivated to sell a property because they can always keep it. And a lot of them will. If you're in a market where you're dealing with a lot of high-end sellers and for some reason the houses aren't selling, and you try to hammer those sellers for price reductions without knowing what their motivation is, they're going to fire you, because what you should have done instead, this is for really upper end market, is you know what their motivation is. And if it's just because they're not using the property anymore, because they own 3 other houses just like it, things like that, you're going to be better off if you offer to lease it for them until the market changes to the point where it makes sense to put it back for sale. That's just for the upper end. But remember, I told you that, upper end agents. Otherwise, what's going to happen if you go into that to a seller who doesn't have to sell the house, and you're telling them to sell the house into a buyer's market, and they just could afford to wait it out, doesn't make any difference to them. Nothing bad happens if they don't put the house for sale and sell it. Well, guess what? If you're not sensitive to that, you're going to get fired, and you should have asked better questions. So hopefully all that makes sense. Julie?
Yes. So go through your active listings, listeners, and rate them on all of these points on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is perfect. Like a 10 for condition would be new construction in a beautiful neighborhood. Rate them, and wherever your lowest rating is where you need to do the work. And usually all roads lead, not always, but most roads lead back to a price discussion. Now, Tim gave you some fantastic ways of getting the price adjusted, not slashed or cut or reduced, but adjusted so that you can actually get the property sold.
Well, repositioned, right? We don't say adjusted. We say repositioned. These little words and these little nuanced things,
they do matter.
Oh my gosh, they matter. And not just upper end sellers too, but all sellers. Everybody hates to hear that their house is overpriced. Nobody wants to hear anything about their condition or their location. So you're going to have to work, especially if it's their own house that they've lived in, because that is a personal thing. And the worst thing you can do, there's a lot of worse things you can do, but an amateurish mistake is not knowing how to say, it's like, bedside manner for doctors, right? Hopefully,
how to deliver the message.
Hopefully you've never had an experience like what I'm about to describe, but like one of our dogs a long time ago, Louie, he had to have this surgery, and it was this horrible, something or another?
Total ear ablation. It was awful. Basically removing his ear canal.
I don't even want to think about it. It's so horrible. Anyway, the vet comes to us and he says, you guys have two choices. There's one doctor that I occasionally use, and he's very amiable. He'll come and talk to you. He'll hold your hand. He'll whip out his guitar and sing songs to make you feel better. I'm making you laugh, hopefully, but you guys get the point. So this is a very amiable, friendly doctor who, the whole thing. Or I got this other doctor who will not want to talk to you, who will never talk to you, you'll never have any contact with, but he's the best surgeon I've ever seen. So you got the really nice guy who's a really sweet guy and he's a good doctor, or you got this other guy that is an absolute, unfriendly person, but it's a phenomenal doctor. Which would you like to choose? Right. And Julie and I would always choose the one, we chose the second one, not the first one. And so, ultimately it's all about essentially the approach you take. So if you're wanting to get a seller to cooperate with you, in some cases, as listings stay on the market longer, you're going to have a relationship with them. It's not just a transaction, especially if you want to get referrals from them after the closing. You have to learn how to talk to them. You have to learn how to have conversations with them. Now, occasionally you can be that second doctor. Occasionally, you're going to come across a seller, usually an expired seller, who is going to have already basically been with the amiable agent, who's not really having the courage to tell them the truth about the position, the condition, or the location of their property. And they're going to say, listen, and Julie and I used to get a lot of this when we sold real estate. Hell, we get a lot of this now with those who are hiring us as elite coaches. I heard that a lot, Julie.
Yeah.
They said, we know that when we hire Julie or you as our personal elite coach, that you guys are not going to BS us. It's not going to be by a friend. We're not going to you guys are going to shoot us between the eyes and tell us what we need to hear, even when we don't need to hear it or don't want to hear it. And that is true. 100%.
Some sellers will say, just tell me what to do. And you're right. A lot of times it is expireds. Sometimes it's a for sale by owner that wasn't expired and they didn't know what to do except sell it themselves because they felt out of control. And then you go and talk to them. And they're like, I didn't know what to do. Tell me what to do. I just have got to get this house sold. You hear that a lot on expireds. And the other thing is what you were talking about earlier is the price. Sometimes they knew it was overpriced, but their agent didn't even communicate with them. Or if they did, it was just constantly, beating on them. The only script they had was reduce your price. So all of these things go into the mix for you to have better conversations, better quality conversations, both on the front end when you take the listing, you look at all of these things to evaluate, as well as when you've taken some listings and they're not selling as fast as the seller needs them to sell, and certainly as fast as you'd like them to sell.
What you want to be is both doctors. You want to be the doctor that can give information you have to be versatile with your approach, versatile with the script you use. You have to be able to, again, this is advanced coaching, but you have to essentially, DISC, there is usefulness for that for sure. So you have to know who you're dealing with, unfortunately, the way the sellers are under pressure when you're having to have conversations with them that they'd rather not have, versus when you first met them or how you know them socially, they're completely different people. Because most people, their worst parts of themselves come out when they're under especially financial pressure. That's a major threat to folks. So you have to have the versatility that's combining your ability to work with the people that are ready to get it sold now. So you have to be ready to put on you have to be the director or the person that wants to have their hand held. And for both of them, you're going to have to learn how to Dr. Phil it. That's what scripts are all about. How to essentially read your audience and then alter and manage your approach as you help them to lead them to the desired result, which is getting their home sold. Hopefully this all makes sense for you. This is the next level, and not just the way to think, but when you apply the skills, you'll start getting next level results. You guys want really top, you want to be perceived as being the top agent in your marketplace. And you're realizing now, many of you, again, hearing this on my elite coaching calls, I spent tons of money. I did all this social media stuff. I did all these videos. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. No amount of Mickey Mouse I put into all this branding stuff moved the needle for me at all. What did move the needle are the sold signs. What did move the needle is you took those 3 expired listings and you sold them, and all those neighbors knew that those were expired listings that you sold, and now they're going to list their houses with you. To Julie's earlier point, you don't judge a man or a woman by what they say, you judge them by their results. And ultimately, your results are how you're going to build the ultimate brand, the results that you get for other people. That's what will make your work famous. Don't try to make yourself famous. These are all lessons that hopefully you guys are learning along the way. In the meantime, if you want our notes from today's show, go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and subscribe to the newsletter. If you are truly ready for next level personal coaching, and we have great, fantastic coaches, this elite coaching is not for all of you. I'm promising you that's true. But you can text me directly at 512-758-0206. And do send me in your text a little bit of information on yourself, or a lot of information. I'll read it all. The more information, the more detailed information you send to me when you originally text me, the better off it will be when I call you back, so we can get right to work and we can actually have a coaching call versus me trying to, sense where you're at in your business and all the rest of it. And be okay, especially when we have the call, telling me all the things so that I can do a better job for you and making sure that I'm a match for you and you're a match for me. Or maybe you're an elite coaching client for Julie, the same thing. Or frankly, and this is happening a lot, you're a better fit for one of our other coaches because frankly, the other coaches don't cost as much, and you can get what you're after working with one of our other coaches. So just text me directly at 512-758-0206. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.